Here's an update on the interior build of the plane. At this point I've got the vector velcroed to the bottom here in the center, and that's not leaving a whole lot of room for the voltage current sensor, but I'm going to probably mount that right to the side and the inside here, down a few inches. And I also had to gouge out part of the, it's very hard to see here, where the USB is into the sidewall in order to fit that properly. I gouged that out and slid right down in, and just hoping I don't have too many wires in front of it for the battery to be an issue. Although the battery will probably be something like this, but center gravity test will determine that for sure. This compartment's pretty much empty, with the exception of the UZUhf, which I put up there. And I'm going to need an extension. That's this guy laying here on the door frame. Receiver's mounted right back there, so I can get at the USB if I needed to. And the speed sensor up there on the top. And the tubing for that, I'm going to attempt to run that through the bottom part of this and then out the nose. That's the hope anyway. I'll probably gouge a channel right underneath the battery from back here forward, 2 tubes. That should take care of that, I hope. We'll see how that goes. In the meantime, the speed sensor got to get put in, or the current sensor needs to be secured. And I'll hot glue the wires all around these components. I've used racers, I forget what the exact brand was. It was wide servo tape, 1.5 inch racer's edge was what I used on the back of this guy, so it's double-sided sticky essentially. And like I said, for this part I just used Velcro. I did use CA glue to secure the base layer Velcro to the plane itself, and then the other piece onto the vector. And I figure the hot glue with a few of the wires here and there should secure everything doubly. And that should make that nice and firm. This guy is CA'd, but I used the double-sided servo tape here to secure that, and then some CA on the bottom of that. And that wire just runs right down into there, through here, and oh, actually this runs straight into the airspeed sensor, and then from the airspeed sensor that cable comes forward into the vector. Okay, we're having a look here at the AS1-K14 arming kit. I've decided to install this component right about there in the plane. I'll put the switch right here. I'll wire into here, and the connector to the ESC will be over there. So basically, you'll have this going on inside the plane. You put this plug in, and the whole thing comes alive. You pull the plug out, and it does not work. That's a safety switch in case the props come on by accident. And you wire basically, as you see here, plus to plus and plus to plus there, creating a circuit where you have the negative connector going across here. This is the negative line. These are positive, going to the positive terminals. Actually 2 positive in this case. And for reference, here's the actual connector, and they're plus and minus connectors. And in the plane, here would be the voltage current sensor from the vector and the ESC over here, and over here is the battery. So this whole thing with the plug will go, and it'll go right into here, drill a hole in the side, and I might have to shorten this lead to make it a little more user-friendly, but we'll see. And that's just a safety feature. Okay, this is the AS1-K14 arming kit. I've decided to add this to the plane for just a safety feature. Basically, this plug here, when it is pulled out, nothing works. And why that is because we have to complete the circuit. We have positive on both terminals here, and positive and negative over here, and positive and negative here, and this negative line runs right across here positive here, and it completes the circuit. Here's what a normal connector, positive and negative, would look like on each end. And on this side you have the battery. This side we would have to the ESCs and the voltage current sensor. And this whole thing will just go inside the plane, or right here. I might shorten this lead, and I'll probably put the pull pin somewhere right around here. And the other side of it goes to the voltage current sensor wire, which is like where my finger is, right here underneath that. And we have how that will be. Alright, well, I've used a drill bit, a pretty big one, to drill out the hole here and come inside. And there you can see the wires on the other side for right now. And here's the connector on the other end. I've used some CA glue to glue that in place, and some CA glue on the other side too. And I will use hot glue inside the hole. I think that should suffice. And the kit comes with these screws. You get 3 standard screws there, and you have these 2 little Allen wrench screws. The 3 go in here, 1, 2, and 3. Maybe some welder's glue into the plane. And then on the sides, if you can see this here, there we go. There is a hole right there on the side, and one on the opposite side. Use the Allen wrench to tighten it against the connector there so it doesn't pull out. I've already put some CA in there to make it even more tight, so I'll have both at this point. I should have mentioned that I forgot to put the ring on. There's a metal ring, give it some support. I was able to re-thread it back on. We're ready to go with the screws. Okay, there's a look at the arming plug. It's in action right now. And that's how it ended up. I probably should have maybe flushed it in there more, but I still could, I suppose. But I'm okay with that, I suppose. Should be alright. And just pull it out and everything goes off. Just like that. Okay, let's take a look at what we got so far. So far I have the GPS module CA'd here on the back, wire running through there. And I've had to change position here. The PITOT, the airspeed sensor, is now located here rather than back here. It was in this compartment before, but now I moved it forward because the tubes would not quite reach. And again, there is the UZUhf, and you can see the wiring there. I haven't glued any of the wiring down to secure it yet, make it neater. Here we can see the vector, and it's got Velcro on the bottom, and Velcro under that is CA'd to the plane itself, and then the hot glue will take care of the rest for the wiring. And then for right now I have the current sensor right there, although I may have to move it, and the extensions here for some of the wires so far. And I took the tubes for the airspeed sensor and I drilled 2 holes, or didn't drill, I used a coat hanger and made 2 holes straight back underneath the vector, and those guys come out right under on that side. In there. I don't know if you can see that or not. And I made sure I kept tape over the ends. I didn't want any material getting in the tube. And I first left them attached to the actual sensor up here, and then cut the tube into 2 and attached it to the coat hanger and poked it through after I already made a tunnel. And I made channels where the battery compartment is here. And once the tubes were down in about 1/4 of an inch, I filled that with a little bit of CA here and there to secure the wiring. And let's see, I don't know if you can't see the tubing here up to the front or not, but it's all the way forward. That is next to impossible to see in this lighting here. Apologize. But the actual sensor is right about here. You can leave comments and suggestions on this one. this point, I guess it's a ½ inch away from the plane. They said it needs to be a ½ inch away. Maybe if I had angled it downward more, it would have protruded more forward. It's definitely a ½ inch away from that part of the plane, but not the nose, so maybe a ¼ inch if that. I hope that that's okay and good enough to pick up the airspeed and do the subtraction it needs to do and pressures and things to come up with the airspeed, the actual airspeed. But that is what I've got so far. And again, on the back side here, I've attached PPM cable to the Immersion RC UZUhf, and easily accessible to put a USB cable in there if I need to. And that's that so far. Next up is finishing the pod for up front and securing wires and checking center of gravity. Okay, in order to put this mount here in the ready-made RC Twinstar pod, I made a couple notches in the wood there, as you can see, to kind of give this guy the ability to slide forward a little more. And then I went and I made a 1/8 inch plywood, just a little notch for it to sit in, and I'll put that piece of plywood down in there. I'll glue it in, and I'll glue this guy into this wood, and I also right here, this lip below the white horn, I'll glue that against this part up here. That way it makes this nice secure fit. Alright, I've put the piece of plywood, again it was 1/8 inch plywood. You have to be careful with this plywood because it tends to crack. If you try to drill into it, it's going to splinter, but I managed to cut out the slot for the servo. Everything is solid and looking good, and I used 5-minute epoxy to secure it to the main pod, and then I went ahead and actually used some CA on top of that just to be safe. And that is what I have so far right there. Now what's going to happen here, and I want to give a shout out to DMERC, DMERC00 YouTube channel, Dave. He has great videos, you should check him out. He has been a pretty good guide for some of this stuff, especially on the pod, inspiration for putting the plywood in here and so forth. And so check his videos out too. Giving kudos. It's a good community out there we've got for building these planes. Comes in really handy when you get into some complex situations. But anyways, I digress. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a piece of this is vinyl siding that I've cut off, and I'm going to glue this onto the front here like this. I'll drill a hole here, and there'll be a hole through the foam here, and I'm going to take this 8/32 screw. This is a bolt here. This is a wing nut you can attach to it. And then to secure the wing nut at the top, to make it so that you can fasten things quickly and not have to worry about this wing nut loosening up, I'm going to use a red thread locker, or Loctite if you can find that brand. The red is permanent basically, whereas blue is a little easier to uncork if you have to take something off. And then on the bottom, underneath the foam here, I will put this T-nut into the wood, which I'm going to use, as of right now anyway, I think I'll use this balsa. It's a 1/4 inch thick, a little thicker than the wood I used here. It's also light, and I think that should be strong enough for this screw to pull it together. I might be wrong on that. I might have to switch to a plywood. I have a 1/4 inch plywood, which might work a little better. So I'm going to try this first and go from there. And I'll just put a small piece under the foam so that it doesn't pull through the foam. Okay, I finished doing the gluing. It was a little tricky. I used hot glue around the servo itself, and I had to make sure this hole back here was wide enough to fit the wire in the front too, straight down through, and that left a little bit of a gap in the back. And so hot glue there, and hot glue around the outer edge basically of the wood too, and CA on top of that. I was just being extra sure. Same thing with the CA around the servo. I added just a little bit here and there, and it is rock solid. It isn't going anywhere. Here's the front vinyl glued down, and I put a washer to add extra support for the wing nut when it's tightened down. And everything looks really good. As you can see, there's a little bit of a gap between the servo turning point and the wood. I had to leave enough clearance there so nothing rubbed. And it is about that far forward. And that's thanks to the notch I made in the wood here and up here too. And I also used a little bit of CA glue to attach to the plastic up top here. Give it an extra support mechanism. So it's pretty stable and solid. And here is the, I accidentally got some of the dry lock, or not dry lock, the thread locker down here on the plane. It didn't affect anything. It dripped down off the screw. I should have put the thread locker on the screw outside of the plane, but I did not. And there's the piece of wood. I ended up going with 1/8 inch plywood also. Silly me, would not work because it cracked. And the nut you can't quite see is underneath there, T-nut. And that guy's glued via CA right under there. So, the effect is, as of now I don't have magnets on here. That should be enough, although I might still add them just for added protection. Put that guy right in here, and slide her back right to there so the holes line up. The cat keeps falling down there. Okay, so the holes are lined up, and now we have the T-nut. I have the thread locker at the top keeping it from unscrewing when you tighten it. And just tighten this guy up, see how she looks. Pushes down on in until you hit the threads. Gets tighter, and as you can see, as you can see here, I can go a little tighter, but I don't know that you really need to. This guy is not going anywhere. You cannot move it. Tight as can be. But we could take it another notch. It gets pretty tight here. Probably don't want to over tighten it, crimping the foam. But this guy is pretty solid without the magnets on the foam. You can not really move it at all, so I don't think there's a need for magnets, as many have pointed out online. So there you go. Wing nut, tighten her down, good to go on that part.